This is a nice design right here. Well, this kind of stuff. Shapes, looks like a heart. It is a heart. Pick this one. It's a night shot with a flash. Center it in the carrier. And it looks clean. In here, turn out this light. And turn this off. This is how we focus. And we use this to focus. That's a focus. Go down here and then you focus on the grain. This is called a grain focuser. This doesn't look too accurate. But there's the image coming in. And we turn this off. And we put our paper in. We'll expose it. See. Let's see how this one comes out. Let's really make this print. It'll be nice. What's this? Okay, let's try this. Should be much better now. Close it one stop. Let's see, focus. See how it looks. Alright, let's see what we have here. This looks like it'll be better. Yes. Guy on a road. It's still a little flat, I would say, in this light anyway. We'll have to turn on the light when it's in the wash to see how it really looks. And the image is flat. See, it's not bad, but it's really off. I would say it's too flat, which means it's not enough contrast and separation. So we'll have to make another test. You know, sometimes when I'm walking after a long day of shooting, and I feel like a presence behind me, and I turn around, it's nothing there but my shadow. It's always my shadow. And I actually feel like a physical presence, but it's just my shadow. So I'm saying maybe it's like I've done the right thing that day, and it's like telling me you're okay, you know, your shadow's protecting you. It's somebody there, so, you know, you did good deeds today. And that's how I feel about when I really do a lot of, like, roaming around with my camera, you know. Sometimes I don't want to do that. I say, oh, I don't feel right. But, you know, you have to do it because it's part of your life. So it's like you're hurting yourself if you don't do these things.
That one's a beautiful ballad. That's my favorite song.
By intuition or instinct alone, I take the photographs, and by chance or even accident, sometimes something was created. The outcome of any image taken is always uncertain. What is certain, however, is I observed it. Through my own frustration, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, contentment, elation, or whatever the emotion happened to be at the time.
Yeah, we got some rock, reggae, some hip-hop. It's a mix of everything. We got some jazz on this side.
The first jazz record I listened to was by a guy named Paul Gonsalves on Impulse. And when I was 16, I listened to Charles Mingus, and he was on the Columbia Records. And I used to buy records on Impulse, Columbia, just because of the high quality sound, where the highs and the lows were really out front, where you could hear each jazz musician. I used to buy records just because they were on a certain label, and I knew it would be good. Well, some music makes me think about visuals, certain moods I can be in. Certain kind of music, I might go out and shoot that kind of mood, the feeling that I have about it. If it's slow, I do some nice moody stuff on the street. Even rock, I might shoot fast and find places that I've never shot before. You know, being bold, being right in front of people's faces and take their picture. It depends how I feel, and the music will let me know how I feel sometimes, because I would listen to music before I go out. And just like feel that and keep it within me sometimes. I was in Denmark at the time. I had left the States. I was like 18 years old and Jimmy was going to perform in this same town I was in. The town is called Aarhus. It's on the mainland of Denmark. And that was like, I'd say 15 days before he left us. And this concert was recorded. It's on CD. And it's a terrible performance because he couldn't hardly play. Everything was out of tune. He played about 3 tunes, and he apologized and he walked off the stage. But the thing about this concert was I was in the audience with a friend who came from America, a black artist. And we were the only 2 black people in the entire place. And it's a small place. It was an auditorium in a school. So Jimmy sees us, and before he starts playing, he does like this. Hey, brother, like that. Then he starts playing. He recognizes me. And so from that time on, I felt like a close connection to Hendrix for some reason, a spiritual type of thing. Jimi Hendrix was a great inspiration, is still to this day a great inspiration for his spirit and his outlook on life in general, in terms of like love being the underlying motivation that should bring people together. And I keep that within my eyes, in my mind's eyes, to express that in my photographs. And sometimes when people see certain photographs that I take, they say it sounds like music, or it looks like music in visual form. And I'm very impressed with that because they've captured, they understood why I would do certain things in that nature, that form, you know.
those days when we were very hungry.
Living in Sweden.
Yeah. And we got very hungry, and sometimes the little kids that sniffed the glue.
I remember that now.
In the subways, they'd bring us hot dogs and things.
But we were so desperate for food. We just had like, we used to have tea for a while.
Tea and strange things, and then you started bringing home all this stuff. And I said, well, how did you afford to get that? I said, come on, I'll show you. Then it was Christmas. You don't remember that, huh?
Yeah, Christmas in Stockholm. It's cold. It's like, it's depressing sometimes.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, but it was a hungry Christmas.
Right. But that was Sweden before we were in Denmark, which was much better to live there anyway.
Yeah.
We didn't have any problems like that.
Yeah. Like the first, second, or third day we got in Stockholm, Jimi Hendrix died. And it was a shock to the system.
That's right.
Somebody told us Jimi Hendrix is dead. We didn't believe him.
That's right. Nobody did it.
No. And it was on the paper, and we were like, oh God, we have no food, we have no place to sleep, and Jimi Hendrix is dead. And how do those things go together? Not good. And we found a place to sleep on the studio floor. I don't know if you remember that. On Odengarten. Yeah.
Studio floor.
Yeah, the still photographer's floor.
Oh.
He said we could stay in there one night, and we did. But Jimi Hendrix is still dead. Funny.
We could talk about why I went to Denmark. Well, I mean, because you were the person who told me about the school.
Yeah.
And that was 1968, actually.
Yeah.
And I was working at the stock exchange, and Pete sent me a letter, I believe. I think it was a letter, saying that this guy, he had mentioned to go to the school in Denmark, International People's College. And so Pete was there, and he said, come on over, I think within 3 months I came over there. And it turned out to be a great experience because that school had almost every nation representative, not every, but many people from different countries. And it was taught in English, everything was taught in English. And it was just a great learning experience about learning about culture
and we got into photography there too.
Photography, yeah.
And learned how to develop film.
From a Japanese student.
Yeah.
Who, actually, he was a photographer.
Yeah.
He was a professional, I guess, at that time.
Yeah.
But I can't remember, how did we print the first prints? Where did we get?
There was a little darkroom in the basement of the school.
And it was his, or?
No, it was the school's, but it wasn't a fancy place, but it was, you could do it. But he showed us how to load film onto the reels and,
I know, developed film, the black and white.
Yeah. I remember he put film in newspaper, like this, just folded it over very neatly. It was pretty amazing. It's like watching this, was like
very neat.
Yeah. It was like, wow, I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. And we got into film from that experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But my first 35mm still camera.
Yeah.
Canon, can't remember the model number, but and I started taking pictures. We left the school. We went around a couple countries, 2 or 3 countries, hitchhiking. And I just took a lot of pictures on the street. I didn't know I had taken so many. I still have some of them.
Then we met those girls in that town.
That's right.
And her mother.
The mother?
Bigot and her mother.
Yeah, I know.
Bigot Hansen.
Exactly.
Yeah. Her mother was a wild child.
So actually it's been 40 years or more, a bit more than 42 years I've been taking photographs on the street. And I do it for the same reason I've done it for these years, many years, because I just do it because I love to do that. And it's my way of relating to the world. It's like I think I'm deeper into the experience of life than if I didn't take pictures. Although the problem with taking street photography is there's a sort of detachment and attachment at the same time, where you become detached from the reality that you're in order to get a visual representation of the reality. So you're not really in the living moment, you're in the moment of taking a picture. And I had that problem when I was with my old girlfriend, not really relating to her being with me and just taking pictures. And so I wasn't really feeling the moment with another person. I was feeling the moment with the subject matter and the environment. So that's what I mean by it's a detachment and an attachment at the same time. It's a lonely profession, let's say. It's a profession of solitude, which is kind of sad if you continue to live your life that way without too many people in your life. You would have to have someone who understands your outlook on life and who wants to create things themselves or herself in the same manner that you do, and you respect what you're doing. And it's a hard balance to find that type of person usually who understands living that way. That whole series I told you about, Woman with Dogs. Woman with a dog. She has a cat. I gotta find some other good stuff. Look at me. Oh my goodness. Oh no. It's way back 73. Afro. So let's go to 1998. I have a girlfriend who wants to go to Marseille. Actually, she wanted to go to Paris, and we go to Paris, and we go to Marseille, and we end up photographing the sights and of the daily street life and various sections of Marseille. And what I noticed in Marseille, actually, at that time, it was like the section of just Arab-speaking people. probably from Algeria or even Morocco. And they would be in the poorer section of Marseille. The sea area where you would find like the tourists. It'd be a whole different world. And so we experienced that. We would walk around at night and photograph in the day. And we decided to go to Arles, which is a spot where Van Gogh painted, and I think he resided there. But Arles actually is a place where they have photo exhibits every year. And at that time, it was off-season, and we just wanted to check out where they gave this exhibition. And we walked around there and stayed there for a while. And I come back to New York, and I think it was a year later, she said, let's go somewhere else. Let's go to India. So we end up going to India, and it's in the wintertime, and we arrive in India, and it's at night, and we didn't have a hotel. Actually, we did, but it was far from the airport, and we stayed in this place for like 6 hours to get a taxi, a bus, I would say, to go to the hotel. And then we end up in this hotel in India, and we start to find places where we can eat. So we stay there, then we just photographed every day. And let's say we stayed there for about 2 weeks, and we decided to go to Nepal. In Nepal, the area we went to was on the border of India. And there's a life there that you would say border people who could not enter Nepal or India. Well, they lived actually on the border, and it was a very deplorable situation there. It was like poverty-stricken children, looking for plastics to sell, recyclables, and families with their dogs, and then I just started taking more pictures, and we ended up staying in Nepal and India for a month, and took a lot of photographs, in fact. And it was really a spiritual journey, because you really felt the nature of people who had nothing, no material goods to speak of, who was so happy. They were happy with their lives and smiling and inviting you into their homes, showing you, whatever they have, and just giving you tea or anything they could give you. It was that type of life, and that's where you find in yourself that, life has more meaning than this world that you live in America, that most people live in America, because it's just... it's infiltrated and perpetuated with the material that should make you happy and make you feel good. But that is not the case. And most people don't realize that, because they don't know any other life that shows you where, all you need is love and, respect, kindness, no fear, because fear induces hatred, bigotry, leads to violence and wars, and because people are thinking, oh, he's different from me. Nobody's different from anybody. It's how you think, how your consciousness is. That's what brings us together. So, a journey in Nepal and India was a great kind of awakening, because it made me become aware that I don't need much to be happy. I don't need much to survive. Just, have food and a roof over my head, and then just continue to do what I want to do. And I think when you do that with passion and truth from your heart, anything that you do will be rewarded to you 10 times fold. It's been written about in many books about this thing. And the key to it is, I've learned, that you have to be very patient. You're not working on your time to get rewards from what you've done. And in a sense, you're working on God's time, Creator's time, the universal time, which is not your time. You're just a part of that. And there's an intersection where you meet that universal time, and that's when you will get your rewards. You're in tune with the harmony that exists in life. And so I had that awareness. I had that reality that's right in front of me, and it's subjective, and I know that it's mine, and it's nobody else's, and it's theirs too. But I don't have to get involved into that whole, universal thing that people talk about. Oh, let's find something outside of you. Nothing's going to be found outside of you. It's all inside of you. That's how we're born. You just have to look for it, and then you relate to the world. It's a bigger world, because the world is actually big. It's too big for us to encompass. That's why we go on to, do what we do to survive and try to find a better way of looking at the world. Some people don't. Some people just stay into their little worlds and create this thing called I call this self-entrapment of the mind. And it's a sad thing, but I photograph people like that, and I feel their sadness, and it's a truth that they have, and I have it because I've been through that, But, to do photography or art, you want to transcend. You want to break out of that and show that it's out of love. And when you connect with certain people, they understand that. And those are the people you really want to be around.
We seldom listen to the sounds that come from love that are in the air of the city. Atmospheres are going to come through music, because music is a spiritual thing of its own. It's like the waves of the ocean. You can't just cut out the perfect wave and take it home with you. It's constantly moving all the time. It is the biggest thing electrifying the earth. Music and motion are all part of the race of man.
I'm always inspired by storytelling. And I think storytelling is the way people communicate better than just reading about things in a book. And so I'm saying visual storytelling, which is filmmaking. And I write these short stories sometimes just from people I might meet, and then I find out something about them a bit in conversation, then I write a story about them. And she says something like this: I killed myself, and now I don't exist. Or was it myself that I killed? She doesn't know actually if she killed herself or did she kill her ego. That's what she's trying to say. So the man says, so we both have something in common. We got rid of our illusions. He said, I got rid of myself yesterday morning. I looked into the mirror and all I saw was nothing but an empty room space. And the woman just says, is it that, how can we communicate then if we have killed each other? And the man says, well, now you know we're speaking with our conscious. Even in our silence, we hear each other. The woman says, are we on the other side yet? He says, the other side? No, that's just a belief, a hope man has made us to believe in something so we don't doubt our own lives. For us, we know ourselves. So the woman turns toward the man. He was looking out at the pair all this time, and she reveals herself that she has been completely naked under this coat. But we see there was no man there at all. And then she says something to open space. All I see is your naked truth. Do you see me? Something like that. I have to rewrite that part, but it's more or less dialogue about losing the illusion of the ego. And hopefully it'll work, in the short piece. Eventually, I started to expand the language, which means to use a particular shutter speed where time would extend itself. It's like editing in a way. The moments are not decisive, but they stretch along a period of seconds. So the shutter on the camera, this is of course all film, would stay longer. It would stay a 30th pass of its real time. So it would get all this movement that would be captured and not exactly a decisive moment. Nevertheless, it's a moment, and you can call any moment decisive. That's just an individual thing that this guy thought about, Cartier Bresson. And I work on the premise that if you expand the language of the medium, you would get people to accept this thing you're doing. And I'm not talking about manipulation. Again, it's what you can use on your camera, and it's there for that purpose. And some people say, well, this is very abstract. It's not clear. It doesn't it doesn't show the real person. I said, well, I want to show how I feel about a particular subject. It's about them, but it's also mainly about the person who recreates, who does the art. And, I don't have to represent documentation in so-called, established technical form. Why should I? It's like music, Why do you want to hear the same old song over and sung the same way? But, hey, somebody already did that. So, I'm taking it to another level, I would say, and I think people like that. Some people like it. It looks like film, which I love film, and it gets all the movement without sound. And so I did this for years. I still do this. It's called silent rhythms. And so you're getting this rhythm, but it's silent. All photographs are silent, but sometimes they say they speak to you, and, they touch you somewhere. But mine is more based on the sound that is not even heard, and that's the visual image. That's like a silent movie. You still get the message even though you don't hear anything. So I work on that a lot and try to get people to get into that space, that perception and that state of mind that I have. I photographed certain people because of the way they might look, their character, their personality, their setting, their environment, how the light hits a certain part of their face and the mood that it creates. It's all about everything like that. And it's not just one particular thing, but it's always about people or how their environment is without them being in the picture. More or less, you can show their way of living by just showing their surroundings. I do series of people, neighborhoods. It's more or less to show the diversities of subculture in New York and how they react, how they feel. They feel outside of the culture. They feel outside of the society. There's no happiness I see in faces. In fact, for all these years, I started over 40 years ago. It's not a friendliness here. New York, you see all stratas of life. Only in New York, I think you can see this. In LA too, it's a little bit spread out. You can't see it visually. And that's the attraction I have to New York. Visuals. Otherwise, I don't think I'd live here the rest of my life. I would just want to photograph. And New York will do that to you. It'll make you seem like, so you think you're cool? And you use consciousness, not your mind. Time is movement, and movement is life. Movement expresses the innermost essence of life, but all movement has a goal. The urban environment is my inspiration for taking photographs. Through most of my years, I have been observing the flow of everyday life in the city. I have seen how this flow of life often moves in circular patterns from calm to undulating to violent, and violent back to calm. This is due to the fact that as we, the inhabitants of this city, progress in our solitary movements, we often encounter one another. We must then decide to lead or follow in our steps, to walk against or with another, or merely make way and remain detached and estranged. There are many options, but the flow and the movement can never cease. My images have always been about the personal exploration of encounters with culture and place. Hopefully the photos will speak for themselves in a universal language of observation and appreciation, or even criticism. The selections are considered a chapter from my experience in the subjective reality which I live. I truly believe that intuition is a form of intelligence. If one would only surrender himself to the life without any judgments and live in the moment with all awareness, much of the misunderstanding and confusion would cease to exist. My walks with camera in hand around New York City have been an ongoing routine for 40 years now. Many sojourns of observation and encounters has also been a way of life, a self-made decision to capture the life before my eyes, full of everyday moments of realities that belong to the subjects that I photograph. Over these years of roaming around, I have seen many changes in the environment and lifestyles of the urban life, especially in the increasing immigration of more cultures from Asia and European people. New York is a unique environment. No other city can compare to the cultural lifestyles of its inhabitants, along with the visual conditions of the rich and the poor of all these many cultures. Faces and moments are my visual interests. Even found objects of design capture my attention sometimes. If I had the means to travel more, of course I would roam around the planet. I guess that one can say about my life is this: he has the DNA of a nomad in love with life, wherever it exists. The Off-Track Betting Corporation was a quasi-government operation run for the benefit of the city. Each year, more than $1 billion is waged on horse races at 68 OTB parlors, restaurant locations, as well as telephone accounts. In the United States, New York City has long been the wagering capital of the sport. In April of 1971, OTB became the first legalized off-track betting operation in the USA. In December of 2010, all OTB parlors closed down for various reasons: corruption, lack of profits, political agendas, and public outcries. Gambling is systemic to the socio-economic and cultural reality in America. Its influences begin at Wall Street, ending with the unemployed and welfare populations of society. As I see it, gambling is a form of inducement leading to the pathology of an addiction. In 1985, I decided to create a photo essay on the occupants of various OTB establishments throughout the 5 boroughs of New York. I continued creating images on this essay for 2 years, hanging out with camera in hand almost every night after work and staying many hours on weekends. My presence with camera would eventually create some curiosity and concern with the patrons and employees of some parlors, especially in the more affluent locations of the city. Their concern had me think of visiting the head office of the OTB Corporation. I spoke to the head man and informed him about my project of photographing a story on OTB parlors, explaining that some of my images could be used as publicity images for the corporation. He liked my concern and agreed to give me permission to do my documentation. Little did he realize that my images could hardly be used to promote horse betting as a fun-full pastime activity. In 1987, I took a break, started to edit and print images that I would use to show magazines and galleries. My documentation gathered little interest, and one gallery at first wanted to have a few of my photographs in a group show, later changing their decision to exhibit for reasons that were unconvincing to me. But who was I to complain? I had mixed feelings about my acceptance, or non-acceptance as it were, with the New York outlets. I felt like Robert Frank when he looked for a publisher for his extraordinary photo work, The Americans, which was turned down by publishers in America. As faith had its presence in my life, many times that I will not mention at this writing, a winning bet on a race paid for a ticket to Paris, a place I had known for its history and documentary photography, hoping there to find some interest in my work. Arriving in Paris, I visit a magazine without an appointment, walk in and announce myself as a photographer from New York with an essay to view for their consideration. The staff was very impressed and even thought of a layout as we spoke. I said merci beaucoup and left to find a bar to have a glass of wine. The images in this self-published book are seen for the first time in America, hoping that one day I can find a gallery that will represent my expressions and creations, which span a 4-decade journey with a camera in hand. I would like to thank all those faces and spirits that I have met, observed, and photographed over the years. My wish would be for all to find enough love and meaning in their lives.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He's coming down. You look good, right? You told me, I think you were 70 years old at that time.
70.
Yeah. This was in 95.
I'm 90 now.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know? No, you look really good, right? You were happy. You were happy.
Good photographer.
No,
right.
No, you're the great photographer. But Robert, look, take a look at this. Because I was influenced by you, actually.
Yeah.
You remember these places in New York? I mean, they bet on the horses.
Yeah.
So I did that for 2 years. And I photographed
Did you make any money?
I didn't make anything. Not a cent. Not a cent.
Yeah.
Because who knows, you know?
So that was taken while you...
I did it when I was working the day. I used to print at a lab,
Yeah.
and I photographed for 2 years doing this. I went to all
good
of them.
pictures.
You like them?
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
Yeah. Did they object that you...
I was almost like invisible.
Yeah.
You know, after I did this, they didn't allow anybody to bring cameras anymore into the place.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you do that.
Well, it's a good place to take pictures.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought I could find every, strata of the society in
Yeah.
these places.
Yeah.
You know, rich people gamble, poor people gamble.
Yeah.
No, blind. This guy's blind, and he used to collect money in the street and bet on the horses. Isn't that something? That's in Harlem.
It's a very good picture.
Oh, thanks.
Like you can't see.
Thank you. You know he can't see. No. That's the real blind better, right? This is Chinatown. That's what.
No, they tried to keep you. You ain't hear me?
You have friends in Chinatown?
No. Oh yeah, the sun. No, I don't have friends in Chinatown. Oh, I do have one, but this is a long time ago. 30 years ago. In 1985, I did this.
You managed to make some money with photography?
I had to print most of my life for other photographers.
Yeah.
I print for them.
You a good printer?
Yeah, I'm a good printer. Yeah. This is taxi cab drivers. This guy didn't like it, right? Not too much.
Well, I guess
Man, well, he didn't
they're
mind.
sensitive there.
Of course, you don't know what,
You published the book.
I did it myself. On,
Yeah.
online. Thank you. Excuse me. But I went to a gallery way back then, and they looked at it and they said, okay. 2 weeks later, they said, no, they won't show it. It's too hard. They didn't want to look at this. Because they want to think that gambling, people win money. Most of the time, people don't win.
All these pictures were taken in
I went all over, uptown, downtown, Brooklyn. Look at this guy, like a typical, better, right? And they're talking about what to bet on.
And he was like, I
Yeah,
have
but
no
nice
clue anything
ring.
right now.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah. Nice friend.
But
Thank you. It's from Arizona.
Yeah.
it's like, I'm gonna find something.
Yeah.
Swedish proverb, luck never gives, it only lends, right? T.S. Eliot, he said, well, this is a little different. Whatever you think, be sure it's what you think. Whatever you want, be sure it's what you want. Whatever you feel, be sure it's what you feel. Then my favorite poet, writer is Henry Miller, but he's saying, whatever there be, a progress in life comes not through adaptation, but through daring, through obeying the blind grade. Urge.
I have a big collection.
You know, that might not apply.
Well, that's a good quote.
It is a good quote. I don't know Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yeah.
How do you spell it? T-H?
T-H-O-M, yeah.
It starts in 1980.
Oh, not T-H.
No,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Very much the same concept. It's like 20 years.
But I appreciate, that you came down today and spoke,
Well, not every day.
What's in
down, but
I know. Well, the last time was 2 weeks ago, you said, come on in, because you were sitting right here.
yeah.
Because I recognized you. You said, you were probably surprised that I recognized you. And you said, come on in, right? Oh, today I saw Robert Frank, and he wrote this in the book that I have of his. It says, for Thomas, a friend, friendly, every day, everywhere. Robert Frank, New York City, March 2015. It was actually April 2nd, but that's cool.
Excuse me.
That's when I was just with Robert Frank. Remember the photographer Robert Frank? So I was with him. He's 90 years old. And so he's talking to me like I'm a friend, and I don't even know him that well. Isn't that strange? Because I showed him my book, photographs, and he loved it.
Can I see?
Yeah, sure. It's a thing I did 30 years ago in New York.
Wonderful.
I think you remember. Remember these things? These off-track wedding places. Oh, okay. I have to give. That's my last copy.
No.
What?
To be frank, not this book, but any other pictures that you might have of floor space.
Oh.
If you have any.
Yes.
Okay.
Like the
Very good.
You liked it?
Yeah. This is like a movie.
That's what somebody said.
All the action, all the feelings of people. Well, listen, your visit is extremely important.
Yeah, I'm glad you were here today.
Yeah.
Because, we were just... I live in Brooklyn now. I live in Bay Ridge.
Oh, wow.
It's
big
okay.
words.
It's nice. No. It's like old New York, Bay Ridge.
I was thinking on you because I'm now collecting as much as possible this series of pictures of the building close to the time we came in.
Right, okay.
Because the building was slated for demolition.
That's right. I remember. And then it got more recognition. You had people who have shows here, movies. The night I had my show, it was just strange. Upstairs, they were rehearsing Shakespeare with Al Pacino that night and some others. The same night as my opening. And one actor came down, Charles Dutton, he came to look at my show and we spoke. But I don't have any pictures of that, no video, nothing of that,
But this is good that you're doing some archiving and you want to,
Yes.
bring up the history.
This is the oldest synagogue building in New York, and the third oldest in the country. And it was built in what year was it built? 1849?
I think so.
Yeah. Paul Emmanuel on Fifth Avenue. Central Synagogue on Park Avenue. All were born here. Benai Yeshurim around Central Park, born here. But people have forgotten completely
Yes.
that.
You're right. People have got a lot of the history.
History in the US and mostly here in New York is something totally inconvenient and absurd. Every day, every minute. Yeah, it's right there.
All this history.
Yeah,
People they're ignorant to it,
Yeah. What an irony.
What can you do, All you can do is educate the people. But that doesn't make them sensitive.
But for today is education. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow will be obsolete.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's life in
That's
America.
life. That's Most of my motivation to take photographs comes from love, a love of life, a love that we have all in us that sometimes is not nurtured in most of us. And when I see certain love expressions on the streets of New York or anywhere where I travel, I love to photograph that moment. And in a sense, those are decisive moments because they really show what the emotion of the particular moment is. And when I photograph women on the street, I photograph them because of their beauty, because of maybe the way their eyes look or the way they might smile or just the encounter with them that I feel their spirit that I must photograph them. And when I traveled to India and Nepal, I actually was with my girlfriend who actually was an inspiration because she would be very encouraging and she would say, just do what you want to do and photograph what you like. And even though I'm there, you don't have to be so aware of my presence. It's your life to capture what you want to do. So I really respected that time with her, and my travels around was always a bit lonely until I went to India and Nepal and Paris with her, and it made more sense to have someone to talk to after the end of the day of shooting. Actress I photographed, she liked me walking with her in the city. Angie Dickinson. Way back when. She used to have a TV show. 82. She asked me if I knew a place to buy roses, so we walked and I found a place and started taking her picture. And this, believe it or not, is Scarlett Johansson on the right here, in her first movie called Manny and Lowe. I had been the still photographer for that film. I forget what year it was, 1995, I think it was. She was like 11 or 12 years old. One particular time I was coming from work as a printer, and I worked a night shift actually, and I worked from 12 midnight to 7 in the morning, and I would go to this coffee shop on 43rd Street. And at this time I was reading the New York Times, and I see a photograph of this actress Colleen Dewhurst. And then I leave the coffee shop and I turn around the corner and someone taps me on my back, and it's Colleen Dewhurst. And she smiles at me, and I said, I just looked at her photograph and I wanted to take a picture of this woman. So we continue to walk, and we end up at this protest on 43rd Street, where they were taking down this theater that most actors had got their first opportunity to work on. So then I run into Christopher Reeves, and he's just standing there, like kind of like crying, it's sad, because he had worked at this particular theater. I forget the name of it now, but actually the New York Times took it over and put their building there. And that was cool, because I have these photographs, and some people say, oh, that's stuff like people might be interested in looking at, because they like these people.
Oh, the shop.
He came in the shop where I was working and wanted pictures of Richard Nixon taken. And nobody could really understand. They asked the owner of the shop. And he said, what are you talking about? And then he came out and asked me and somebody else that was working there, do you want to take pictures of Richard Nixon and get paid for it too? I said, hell yeah. Where? He said, in Montauk. Richard Nixon goes to the Lake Club, I think it was called, every year. And every year they shoot him with the staff, the kitchen staff and the girls that do the rooms and everything. It was all color. You know, I shot my little VPS with all the people, and of course I put black and white in my camera, and you know. And then after I shot all the people, there was about 15, 20 people I shot him with, and they got the negatives. So when I was done doing that, he was still standing there, so I just sat on the ground with my Nikon and shot up at him. You know, that's why you see a clear sky behind him. And I did the diptychs and triptychs out of those. Yeah. That was the morning with Richard Nixon.
Well, how did you get into doing portraits, you would think? I mean, really?
Because, well, you know, because I was photographing streets in the city, you know, in San Francisco, in Stockholm, in New York, wherever I was. Mm. And then I came out here to the country, there was no streets left. You know, no people streets. Mm. So I got a newspaper job doing, you know, events. And I just used the techniques I learned in the street, but I put a flash on the camera, you know, and it was perfect.
2 female officers in Harlem. The face, she looks like a doll. Oh, 1975. Oh, look at that. This one, somebody said it looks like Cartier-Bresson, but I just found it, you know, Central Park. I photographed it so much. There's a lot of design in this picture. That's why people like it. Look at this, the arm. He's making a circle like the wheel. This thing. Oh, this one I call The Last Payphone. It's at night, somewhere in Brooklyn, I believe. Oh, there's 1970, 43rd Street. Look at this. All this stuff doesn't exist. None of this stuff. What's this? I think this is actually one of those theaters that had sex shows. 1980. It's in 42nd Street. Armed Forces Day. They don't have these jets coming on Fifth Avenue anymore. It's up crazy. Look at this. Oh, mid-80s. Edgecotch. Best Minds. Oh, this one. Taken in 1993. Very interesting photograph. 9/11. And it looks like Twin Towers here, right? Strange. Cafe on Bleecker and MacDougal. This place doesn't exist. I can't remember the name. Somebody must know it. It was across the street from Le Figaro, and that's gone also, which was a great cafe. This is in 1980.
No, that's a photographer being shot at.
Being shot at?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, being shot at. The sniper had me in his sights. So sitting in Beirut, you get all of this
perspective,
drama and intrigue, and you know, we have this this apartment we have a terrace, 2 balconies. You know, we look at movies at night.
Sounds good.
Everything is in walking distance. The neighbors protect us. We live on the stairs. Well, I got into Magnum in '96.
Did you?
I felt that you could take pictures and tell a story, because we're authors, and yet take those kind of imagery to conflicts, to wars, without having to keep it in the usual way we look at pictures. I felt it was important to bring an audience into a picture and how to share that thing with them. But I took Western Front, immediately went to Paris. So my fashion is Western Front. When I was doing fashion in Paris, I was coming from that attitude. But I brought my own imagery, and therefore I took it from the fashion, and then I took it to the conflicts. And that's where it is today. If I hadn't done Western Front, I never would have had the understanding that I could actually take that, what I do.
So I worked on various projects like cross-processing in the streets, which is like using reversal film, color film, and processing it as a negative, and the colors come out very intense, and you can manipulate the colors, which I don't try to do. I just want the intensity of the color. And the fact that it's the same content, I'm just fooling with the form. I wouldn't say fooling, but using the form of the medium without changing the content. And to me, that established sometimes a more abstract view of reality, which people might remember more than the blatant, so-called documentary photograph, which is supposed to be revealing truth. Well, truth, it's all subjective. Truth is all how you see it. It's not what you capture in the photograph. It's like a difficult task. How are you going to bring truth into an image? It's another reality. It's like it's 3-dimensional in a 2-dimensional plane. The photograph is a thing in itself. It's you recreated something from the reality that exists. I could write about each photograph that I take. So eventually, years pass on, and then this thing of, with the internet and everything and all these self-publishing sites, and I decide just to publish my work, self-publish it.
They will, maybe, who knows when, but
it's not important.
No, it's not, because the audience is never up to this mindset of the creative person. Right?
No, but the audience, but what I find is that there's, for example, when I did Black Passport,
Great book.
Thanks. But I didn't think anyone would get it. When we did this book, it was almost like, he's dying. Let's just throw it all out there, and whatever, it'll be his epitaph. And then he lives, and everyone go, drinking wine. And I saw this movie called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I just went, holy shit. And I was like watching how it moved, and then I said, and then I had another friend named Stephen Dubois who already had planted the seed in my head. He says, your work is lyrical. So I took that and lyrical and cinematic, and I started to look at Open Wound and say, oh, it has to move like that. It can't be chronological. It has to move lyrical because you're dealing with a subject matter.
As a film.
Where the people, they're considered terrorists,
That's
they all
connection
die.
right there.
Yeah, it's all bad.
How we met? Well, at the Art Institute, which is in San Francisco. I just believe it was 1977, 6, 7,
Something like that.
Something like that. So it tells our age, but we won't talk about that. And
Why?
no, I know it doesn't matter. Anyway,
I'm still young.
You're still healthy. Look at me.
We changed the rules, man.
Absolutely. That you develop and you stay with it. It's the
Yeah,
focusing.
you stay with it.
You stay with it.
Yeah.
You're not influenced by the outside. You stay within yourself and express that, I believe.
While I was studying at the San Francisco Art Institute, I was accepted for photographs that I had shown, and they assumed that I was going to study photography. As it turned out, I really wanted to major in filmmaking. So I did so and actually made a film called Desperate Whispers, a black and white 16mm film, silent film at that, with some actors who the school found for me. The school was very liberal and very accepting of one's perspectives on art. And in fact, they really encouraged me to make films because they thought that was my real passion. And it turns out that the film itself became a very good experience working with people for the first time, actors, and also writing a script for the film. And the teacher of the class actually gave me honors for that particular film. And San Francisco in general, the lifestyle is very laid back, and I would say it's very clinical in its representation as a city. You hardly see any dirt on the street or trash that people would discard. And the neighborhoods are somewhat separated, I would say, like by class and by culture. And that's the case all over America, so it doesn't make it unique in that way. But I love the city for its atmosphere and its photographic feeling that I had when I would go out, especially at night when the fog would roll across the city and the old trams and just the life that was so different when the clouds came by. So, you know, St. Albans had all these famous musicians living in the area. John Coltrane, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Fats Waller living down the block. Of course, he had been dead for many years, but his house still stands as a historical site. I used to visit Count Basie's home, using his swimming pool, and meeting his wife and daughter. He wasn't there often. And then James Brown lived in the neighborhood for a while. He was one of my famous singers. I was 11 years old. I brought one of his early records, Bewildered. And like I said, my mom influenced me a lot, listening to music, R&B. And she would take me to films when I was young, the films she wanted to see. And that left a lot of presence on my mind, especially the films by Alfred Hitchcock, North by Northwest. I loved Cary Grant. I loved the way he dressed. And I asked my mom to get me a suit like that, just like Cary Grant. And then she said, no, we can't do things like that. It's just too expensive. So when I was 12, she brought me this camera, and I started making movies, home movies of the family, and writing all these stories about music and films. Let's Rock and Roll was one of the films I made, and it was on 8mm with my cousins to sing a song called Blue Moon by the Marcells. But of course there was no sound on it, but I would play the record and have them sing to it. So I guess it's coming from an early childhood that stays within you and true to yourself, and when your nature was more free and pure as a child. And I try to keep that in myself to this present day. And which is not that difficult. Just don't be influenced by the society. Live outside the box, they say. And think for yourselves and not what others teach you. It's your life, and they have their lives, and sometimes they won't impose their values on you. Especially society. And the schools and the art world. You know. So I just do what I love, with passion, coming from my heart, and I continue to do what I like.
I was amazed that everybody was in the west photographing the wall coming down, and here I'm all alone by myself in the east. I mean, there was East German photographers and there was other photographers, but it was just so surreal. And so you get caught up into the moment, and you're a fashion photographer, so you don't know anything. You don't know that this is dangerous. You just know, wow, this is cool. I'm actually part of history. And then you turn the corner, and there's a girl being lifted up onto the wall in a green tutu and a bottle of champagne and a motorcycle jacket, taking the Stasi's hat, putting it on her head. That's a fashion shot.
That's a fashion.
And that's what I took. It was a fashion shot. I knew this. I know this. This is what's interesting about photography. It's about psychology and memory. You take these things into your body and you keep them there. You think you're making an original photograph, it's already there. When I did the picture of the blood in Lebanon, that's a Francis Bacon painting that I'd seen at the Tate. You know, that, and I pointed back to people like Gutman. I pointed to people like Walker Evans, because these people, they understood. You know, I had some students once, they said, you know, the problem is all the good pictures have been made. I said, excuse me, you have to put this in your mind. Those pictures were made at their time. They documented their time. This is your time. I'm down here at Broadway and Lafayette. I look up on the street. I see a billboard the size of a wall. And I remember 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I was taking the same photograph of that billboard. It just keeps changing. So therefore, 10 years from now, somebody might say, oh, well, that because you had better pictures then. No, you document your time, and time ages. If you look at the work of Versailles was doing graffiti of his day. We look at it now and we call it art. I mean, if you look at all of how art evolved, it's all about emotion. This to me, we've lost. We have lost this. We have become
the human contact.
We have lost the human contact. And that's what, in the lectures and seminars I try to do, I'm very confrontational. I tell them, this is your support system. You have to come together, you have to stay together, you have to be in communication with each other, you have to share, you have to be open. I mean, what better education do you want? Of course, It didn't help me when it came to photographing conflicts, but...
All that education zoomed down the drain.
Totally.
Form? What are you talking about, form?
Form is like, how do you form?
A language I can't even speak. Let me just shoot this thing.
Yeah.
Then we actually meet again in San Francisco at another school I was going to, Art Institute. That was 1976, 7 I came. And then you came over from Sweden with your wife at that time.
No, she wasn't with me. She came later.
She came later, right.
Yeah.
They're taking classes. And hanging out with Stanley Greene, who we both know.
Yeah, we curated a show together.
That's right, you know about that.
Angela Davis was in the show.
You told me.
Yeah. But I was mostly in the street, just walking around the streets. And it seemed easy, coming from New York, because California's so sunlit and peaceful, compared to, walking around in Manhattan.
And the lighting, it was beautiful actually, some of the lighting. Always remind me, I haven't been there, like Greece, the lighting I saw in Cartier-Bresson, but the lighting would just hit it that strongly sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, the temperature was perfect all the time. It's like, wow. You didn't feel like you aged out there. It was like, wow, it's sunny again.
It wasn't like real hot. It was just
it was perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
That part of the state was perfect.
All right, I'm going to go back to 1977. I was a student at the San Francisco Art Institute studying filmmaking and photography. I had received a scholarship for one year to attend there, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to learn how people look at art in art schools. And in my second semester, my scholarship had run out, and I didn't have any money to complete my education, so my mother actually called me and said she received won a ticket actually in a raffle, a Christmas raffle at her job, saying that it was a round-trip ticket to Poland. And she said, maybe you want to go. And I said, why would I want to go to Poland? Anyway, I had thought about something, and I said, maybe I can take an independent study. I wouldn't have to pay for the semester at the school. And the director of the humanities department said, yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't you do that? So I start out to go to Poland, and I arrived in Warsaw, and I showed my passport to the officer there, and he said, where are you staying? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just going to walk around, visit, and take photographs. He said, well, my friend, you have to get on the next flight and go back to New York because you have to have a residence in this country. So I walk away, and I said, this guy's got to be an idiot. So I look into this phone book that was sitting there on a table, and it says various addresses for hotels and youth hostels. And I write down one particular youth hostel and go back to him. And he says, come on in, welcome to Poland. So then from there, I actually got on a bus, and I ended up on the wrong bus, and the bus went to Auschwitz. And I didn't want to get off the bus to see that. So I said, let me just sit in the bus. I didn't want to see these, things that happened in that history in Poland. So I get on the bus and go back to Warsaw, and I end up at this youth hostel, which is a really like a deplorable place. It was like, it smelled like shit when you went in there, and men wouldn't wash, and it was like only $1 a day. And I stayed there for one day, and I said, I got to get the hell out of this place. So this guy said, well, I can find you a hotel, but it's a 4-star hotel in Warsaw. I said, okay, I'll take it. How much is it? He said, well, whatever, $7 a day. I said, okay, I can do that. So I end up there, and I go to this hotel, and then this man says, who are you? I said, well, didn't the guy tell you that I was supposed to stay here? And he said, oh yeah, we got a room for you. So then I just started walking around with my camera for like every day, everything I saw, I would photograph people, families and children on the streets, and they all loved it because they just felt like, it was an honor to be photographed for some reason, And then I noticed one time there was a KGB guy following me because he said, what the hell is this guy doing, photographing everything. You're not really allowed to photograph like establishments, government, buildings and things like that. And so, nobody bothered me. They just let me go on my way. And, I ended up staying in Poland, to make a long story short, for only 6 days. I ran out of money. And I come back to New York, I had a lot of photographs. And I did all the work, and I submitted to the school, wrote a paper. And I never went back to the school because I just, I didn't have any money to complete that next year. So I stayed in New York. I mailed everything. And then the teacher said, well, you got grades, honors and this stuff, but unfortunately you can't come back to, study with us. So I said, yeah, well, that's how it is, man. And then a few months later, I'm walking on 42nd Street, and there's this international magazine stand, and it sells magazines all over the world. And so I see this magazine, it says Polska Panorama, and it's written in English and Polish. And it says there's a competition for pictures taken in Poland. I said, damn, maybe I should just enter, my pictures that I took there. So I enter the photographs, and I get a letter from the magazine saying you won the top prize. I said, damn, the top prize was to go back to Poland. And I said, I told them, I don't really have money for this. Can I sell the ticket? And they said, no, you can't do that. You have to come and visit and speak to the department, a minister of culture and arts, and they like your photographs a lot, but you should come back. And I said, well, I can't. I have no money. So I never went back. And then the photographs were actually never shown except to the school, and maybe one other place looked at them, but they wouldn't publish any of this stuff for some reason. And I never really pursued to promote my work like that. I just did it because I love to do it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Great time. Yeah. I think we felt freer there than anywhere we've ever been.
I did, yeah. You felt your identity, which is good in a way. It was your own understanding of yourself, and not the one that they classify you as whatever. Yeah.
The way you live will connect you to that existence in the universe. And it's a hell of a challenge, because you have to really surrender to this life that was given to you for this short time. And why not be happy? Why not enjoy every moment in your life as well as you can, as best as you can? And just let all the sadness and all the struggles come as they come. They will pass like any illness, but you have to let it go through you. You can't complain about the illness or the pain. Then it'll stay longer, it'll linger. You have to let it be. I think John Lennon said that, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And that's all what for me, that's what photography and has contributed to my life, because it has given me that awareness of every moment is important. And you know that when you take a picture. Otherwise, you won't take it. You would just walk and say, oh, it's not important. But every moment is important, if you look at it that way. And with anyone, by yourself, it's important. Solitude is important. That's the only way you can relate to everybody else. You can't be into this, partake in everything that's going on. This chaos. I think it's better to live in solitude than chaos. Then you can deal with the chaos. But if you do it the other way around, you never could be alone. You probably say, I can't live this way alone.